I think that one of the things we spoke about at the very start of this conversation was the feeling with that Champions League triumph is not only the confidence it's going to give to all these players now that they've won the biggest trophy in club football, but how young they are and how they could grow. I think that there is maybe a pessimistic belief that, how can you top a Champions League triumph? But I think it probably lessens the pressure for a lot of these players. And it's exciting to see where they can go. I think getting into a player I do want to touch on, because I think he can have an amazing season. And it's hard to top scoring the winner of Champions League final, but in terms of his overall Chelsea career, we hope he can go to new heights. It is Kai Havertz. He's doing well at the Euros. I'm not really taking too much notice of the Euros in terms of my analysis of what's going to happen in the season, because international football is very different, and I think that's a general rule that I'm applying to. I'm isolating the Euros down to what it is. But Kai in particular, we don't have to look at the Euros. We can look at what he did at the back end of last season. He was brilliant in that number 9 role for Thomas Tuchel, and it really felt like he was starting to get that sort of flow and confidence and that level of swagger that we all hoped he would when we got so excited last summer about signing him.
Yeah, completely. That was what we were waiting for, and it took a while. Circumstances, as we've all seen, he was off. He had to. He was injured. He stayed away because of COVID and all of that. That's going to have a big effect, of course, to try and get back to full fitness and to try and get yourself back to 100%. That's going to take time. But everyone was patient. Everyone's waited for it. And thankfully, as you said, towards the back end of the season, it's looked like, Kai Havertz has arrived. Now he has arrived. He is here. the one that we signed from Bayer Leverkusen, the one, as you said, with the swagger, with that cool composure, that elegance about the way that he controls the ball, he moves, he glides. And weirdly enough, a lot of people don't necessarily think that he's one of the quickest, but he is one of the quickest. And we know how fast he actually is, even though he doesn't look it. He just looks like he's hovering. So, yeah, I think you're correct in saying don't compare with the Euros and what he's doing at the Euros completely. The only thing that I can say is a positive for him playing really well is his confidence and that consistency. That's just going to carry over to his work at Chelsea. So hopefully he has a good Euros. Hopefully until Tuesday, and England, fingers crossed, knock them out. This might be released afterwards. We'll see what happens. But once he finishes the Euros and he comes back to Chelsea, hopefully he keeps that confidence going. He keeps that consistency. And from the first day of the Premier League season or the Super Cup, he can just hit the ground running. But I think there's a good player in there. Hopefully someone that's going to be a massive world beater. And at such a young age, I think his development's just going to go through the roof.
In my latest pod with Jay McIntosh, we were speaking about, he asked me a question like, who do you think are like your top candidates to be our player of the season next year, so next May? And I think we both mentioned Mount, Kante and Havertz. I think that because you just see once again a trajectory, and also the hope is next season will be a lot more normal for Kai. This is one of the things that I think all the new signings have discussed, is that they came over to a country that has basically been in lockdown for most of the year. There's been no supporters inside the ground for most of the year. The usual sort of, I think this was Paul Merson on Soccer Saturday was speaking about this. When a new signing would come in, you'd go out for dinner. The team would go out for dinner with them and interact and socialise and get used to the culture of the club. And these are human things that, unfortunately, as fans, we don't really take into consideration, but things that I'm sure all of the new players have struggled with this year. As much as we personally have struggled with the circumstances over the past year, I can only imagine some of that, moving to a new country and moving into a new job and a new, in a new setup as a young player. It's just, it must have been difficult. So I really hope next year he can find that freedom. Do you think the winning goal in a Champions League final, it's kind of a dumb question, but it's like, I think that's going to lessen the pressure on Kai. Some people think it may raise the I think it's going to lessen the pressure from the fans to Kai Havertz, because that goal is going to be iconic.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, de facto, has he become a Chelsea legend already? It's possible because he has scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. People compare that goal now with Didier's in 2012. Like, that's how massive it is. And he's only been at the club for a few months, so it's, a year. But it's crazy. It's crazy. And I do think you're right. It does lessen pressure because you've done something so huge That's going to sit in the back of your head. That's going to sit, in your mind as I've done something massive for this club. I'm kind of one step ahead of the game compared to some of the other lads, maybe. So I wouldn't say it's good. It's good to relax. You should never relax. You should keep, trying to get better and develop and try and up what you've already done. But it does lessen the pressure because you've made your mark. Whereas others are possibly still trying to make their mark, but you've made your mark. So it's a good foundation to work on. And it's a good base to have in trying to get better and to try and do more big things like something like that. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it will have less pressure on him now. And, in fact, give him more confidence going into the new season. And hopefully he can play such a massive role. And I think it will.
We just obviously spoke about transfers and Haaland. If that wasn't to happen, my first plan B option is to not sign anyone else and just go with just stick with Kai as the 9, basically. I would stick with Kai as... Well, this is the thing. I'd rather not spend 30 million on a player who's going to radically improve what we have. You were speaking about keeping Tammy Abraham. I would keep Tammy Abraham around if he wanted to stay. I am of the belief that if Tammy wants to go, I'd let him go because I think he's someone that deserves to play Premier League football somewhere and I think would very much succeed. But I would go with Kai as a 9. If you can't this is also, I want to make this clear, if you can't get Lukaku, then if you can get Lukaku, then yeah, you get Lukaku. But if you can't get anyone of Haaland's tier, I just think stick with Kai as that 9, personally, for me.
Yeah, I think it depends who's out there and who the club are looking at. But you're right, we need someone of that stature. We need someone who's top tier. If we're not going to get anyone that's top tier, then absolutely, Kai Havertz has already proven that he can play in that role, that he can be up there. And if we haven't got a choice and we have to work with what we have, that's the best option, for sure. And possibly finding a way for those two, well, him and Timo Werner, for example, to blend up top together. Or at least if we have to rotate, if we have to play certain players and we just have to stick Havertz up top, we know he can do a job. So, yeah, I think in terms of what we have and what we would be able to use, that would be the best option too. But fingers crossed, we do get someone top tier because I do want that to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. It's between Kane's not happening. It's just it's just not going to happen. I've never let my hope for it go up more than like 5% because it's just not going to happen.
That would break the matrix.
Yeah, it would, man. So Haaland, Lukaku, as I said, I think if that just doesn't happen, I think what Tuchel will be relying on is that the goals get shared around a lot more and that the goals for the likes of Werner increase. You're hoping that law of averages says that if he gets the same chances again next season, he's going to put more away. Pulisic, if Pulisic can stay fit for a season, I think that guy's I think that's someone that I'm trusting to get a lot of goals as well. I've said this before. I think he could be one of our top goal scorers if he stays fit for a season. Mason was adding more goals to his game last year, and with the development of Mason, you got to think that he's only going to go up, as a player. So if you can share the goals, I think that's what Tuchel will be looking at a lot more, is sharing more of the goals around. Still, absolutely, there's a reason why we're quite clearly going in for Erling Haaland in a serious way, because I think we all know what the biggest issue is to rectify.